Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to hear. Uh, All right, everyone still there?
Yep.
Ah, hold on, Thomas and Carol calling again.
Hey Scott, this is just like work every day, right? On Zoom or WebEx, right? All day long.
Zoom all day long.
Yeah.
And sometimes all night. Depends on who you're calling.
Yeah, that's true. Good thing about this one is we don't have PowerPoint, so that's awesome.
I know.
I was gonna do a PowerPoint actually.
Oh, no.
But I thought, meh, I won't. I'll let everyone see my big ugly face. So now that we can do it like this, Travis, could you take some prayer requests?
I'm gonna Mick and Teresa wanted us to pray. Mick wanted to pray for his cousin, his niece, who lives in Marysville. Her name's Deborah, and she's got the virus right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So she's on the list. Imagine.
Also, with the virus, Margaret Crabtree, the lady who Margaret's named after, her daughter and son-in-law both have coronavirus. They were stuck on a cruise in Europe, and when they got home, they both had it. Their names are Jim and Bobby, or Jim and not Bobby. Debbie, Jim and Debbie.
Okay.
Can you chat too? So Fatina's saying.
Melba and Madge.
Yep, I got them. Madge and Melba.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Juliet called today, and what are you telling me?
Neither of the places would, I was just hoping that they would log in, like, for the service and help them. Matt or Melba just sit in front of the computer. Neither one of them were really willing to do that.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else we got on the list?
Well, everybody at a hospital anywhere.
Yeah.
All our essential.
The sick people and the first responders, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just there's some places getting really slammed.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that Yakima County's got 234 people confirmed. So.
Yeah, they're going up fast.
Yeah.
You can pray for our business.
Oh yeah.
It's a hard time.
Probably everyone's business and health.
Yeah, layoffs. My brother got laid off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We good? Is that it? It's a short list.
Pam says continued prayers for her daughter Tina, who's still in pain.
Okay.
And Fatima has one. Brian is on unemployment as well right now.
Okay.
I have one. There's obviously a lot of change going on, a lot of some negative stuff, but just trying to be that positive light to your coworkers and people you are around. I guess just pray for that, because I think that's a big thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is a praise, which is pretty cool. A lot of the downtown, well, my landlord called me because I had given my 30 days notice, and she called me back today and said that they were trying to work with everyone who has a business in that area, which is pretty awesome. And so they're trying to work with people on their rent. And it seems like at least our community is trying to help people keep their businesses, which is pretty awesome. Some landlords are even offering, no rent for a couple months. So, hoping that things get better pretty fast. So, I mean,
Yeah, my landlord did that. Praise the Lord for that.
Yeah.
He gave me a month of no rent. So,
Yeah, Juliet said something to Sarah today.
mhm,
So part of this, whatever they call it, the stimulus package,
mhm.
part of it for small businesses is you can apply for a small business loan. And I think if you are using it to pay rent or pay salary, this covers 1099 employees too. So, Sarah, you might want to let your folks know. They don't, the government's not going to come back and tell you to pay back the rent. They'll forgive the rent and the salary portion of the loan.
Yeah, I tried to figure that out. It's still like
Yeah.
really hard to figure out. But I did, thank you. I looked at the links and everything.
Yeah, but it's pretty good. I mean, that's a good way to do it, right? If you got somebody that's talking about forgiving rent or letting, you can pay them. Right?
Yeah.
You can pay them now, and maybe on the back end, it's like they cut you a break on the back end too, because that might run out. So that's good.
Yeah.
that's awesome. No.
How's Kelsey and Gideon doing? Ken?
It's all right. Still trying to figure out the sound. My phone's about to die. They're doing good. Gideon is. Gideon is. He's standing with help, which is crazy. He's almost about to walk. He's crawling everywhere, so they're trying to baby-proof the house. And Kelsey's doing good. She's pretty bummed because we're on like a huge lockdown here. I don't know if like everybody knows, but they like suspended training. So we made it through a week, which is like one of the hardest parts about this training. And then they suspended it. So we have to start over, which really blows. That's all right. I just view it as more fun games in the sand. But they're not even gonna let her come down here, so that really sucks. So I can't see her for like I think until like June, I think, which really blows. But other than that, we're doing fine. So
All right, I'm just gonna say this real quickly. We have a whole lot of unmuted microphones. So if you're not talking, go ahead and mute that mic.
Can you, you as the host, right? You should be able to set.
I can, but I figure I'll trust everyone.
You're not going to wield that authority just now.
Yeah. I feel like we have a full of adults. Hey, Roxanne, could you mute your mic real quick? There we go. And then there's a phone call. Someone who's on a phone call. Who's that?
Did you do it?
Hello?
That's me. Yeah, it's me.
Oh, hey, Tom. What's up? Very good. Okay. So you called in. Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, so now I can hear you.
Excellent.
All right, let's, anybody got anything else to add to the list? If not, I'll say a prayer. Okay, let's pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us together. Even though we're not sitting there in front of each other, thank you for giving us the technology to just to get together as a group, as a church, and fellowship with each other. Father, please be with us and be with our families. Help us in this time to be patient, to be wise about what we're doing, how we're going out, how we're like working with other people, and just bless us with wisdom and patience and understanding, and help us to be just a positive force and to be a light to people who may be stressed out and dealing with just more than we can even understand. We think we may have some stress in our lives, and I'm sure that there's others that are dealing with a lot more. So just help us, give us the strength to be encouragers, the strength to pray for people and to pray for just all the things that God has that you've blessed us with. Father, we've got some prayers for people that are sick and unemployed and businesses, and so we're gonna pray for just the healing, the comfort, encouragement, and for things to work out. And Father, we pray that as we're seeing things and it looks negative a lot, that we understand that you're looking at the bigger picture, and we need to remember that your will is going to be done, and that you are blessing us no matter what our current circumstances are. Father, please be with Deborah. Help her and her family cope as she's dealing with this virus. I pray that she gets the attention that she needs, the medical care that she needs, and that she will recover. Please also be with Jim and Debbie as they're dealing with this as well. Just help them to deal with this and to get the right care that they need. Father, please be with everybody that owns a business right now. Whatever that situation, just help the business to go well. Help whoever they're working with as far as like rents or salaries or whatever, just to work out well. Help people to be compassionate and understanding. And just, I pray that the businesses that are out there right now will return to normal as best as they can, and that the Christians that are running them will be able to encourage others. Others, just please watch over everybody and help us to be just a great light in this community. And then also be with people that are laid off. It's just amazing the number of people that are unemployed right now across the country. We've got friends and families that are dealing with layoffs. Help that the unemployment applications to go smooth. I pray that they'll have enough money to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever it is they need. And Father, I pray that they will be surrounded by love with their families as they're going through this. Just encourage them, help them to deal with the struggle of trying to find work in an economy that's not doing well. And Father, I pray that they will be able to just see the light, see where things are coming, and know that there's something better in the future. Father, please be with Madge and Mala. Just encourage them, help them to deal with the frustration of being in a safe place, but not being able to communicate well with each other, not be able to have visitors, not be able to visit us in church, and be part of this community. I pray that we'll just spend the time reaching out to them and talking to them, encouraging them. And Father, please be with them and help them to have just great spirits, to know that you're working in their lives, and for them to be lights in the communities that they're living in. And Father, please be with everybody, all the first responders right now, the medical community, police, military, firefighters, everybody that's out there dealing with this right now. And more importantly, almost, as important, be with the people that are just taking care of us, UPS people that are driving, delivering stuff to the house, the people working in stores, helping us to get the things that we need to live and to survive. Father, just please be with those people. Help them to know how much we depend on them. And I pray in the future that we will do a better job of not taking people for granted, and realize what a blessing it is to have people that are willing to commit their time to taking care of us. Father, please be with us tonight as we study. Thank you so much for giving us a time together in this forum and to learn more about you. I pray this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
All right. Very good. So, Tom and Carol, I'm going to go ahead and mute you because I don't know that you can mute yourself through your thing. So if you have a question or anything, just wave your hand and I'll see you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna just go, it's just on Tom and Carol's screen now. Can anyone see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Or ask on chat. Yeah. You can ask anything you want to in the chat box as well. All right. All right. Very good. So I'm going to exit full screen here. Very good. So last week, really quickly, interesting story that happened. I was walking down the street. I saw a guy who threw a whole handful of Scrabble letters all over the roadside. So I picked him up and asked him what the word on the street was. I told that wrong. Apologize. Anyway, it's a joke.
Oh, I thought you put us all on mute to tell us that. That's man.
So
That's bad.
yeah, it was real dumb.
I love it.
So last week we discussed the lordship of Jesus seen in the book of Colossians, and we went through just several aspects of what that means. The idea that Jesus is Lord and what that means for our lives. Just that basically it's this overarching, motivating, and controlling factor of how we make decisions and how we see the world. And we're gonna get into that a little bit more this week and just kind of flesh out a few different things of what that means. And then kind of underneath that, Jesus being Lord, look at the idea that he is Lord and we are his people, right? So we are then under his lordship. So the church are the people who are under the lordship of Jesus. So we'll look at what that means. So the lordship of Jesus in the book of Colossians, like we went through last week, it's really one of the core messages of this book. It is kind of at its heart, the idea that Jesus is Lord. And one of the areas that really comes out is in the Christ hymn in chapter 1, verses 15 through 20. So chapter 1, verses 15 through 20 it's a Christian hymn. So the way it stands it out in Greek is as a song, right? So what we read in verses 15 through 20 would have been a song that the ancient Christians sang together, right? So it's actually it's embedded within the story. So the way that they see that is just different features in how it sounds, the rhyming or assonance or alliteration, and then how it's also stanza'd. So you can tell a song in ancient Greek through several different means, and this one is definitely one of them. So, Ellis, would you mind reading chapter 1, verses 15 through 20? And I want everybody to be looking at this passage and because you probably all read it before, but just look at it and just take note of certain features of the text that really stand out to you.
Unmute it.
It is.
Oh, say that again. What?
Chapter 1, verses 15 through 20.
But which book? I have some distractors going on around me.
We're in the book of Colossians today.
Oh,
Thank you.
I told him Hebrews. Oops.
That's Sunday.
Hang on.
General Electric Power Company.
Right after Philippians.
Right. It's there. I found it all on my own. So say the verses one more time though, seriously.
Book of Colossians, chapter 1, verses 15 through 20.
Okay, got
I called on you because I thought you'd be on point, but
it.
You should have called on me.
Yeah.
You would've read
Sarah's the
Hebrews.
holier one.
you would have been reading out of Hebrews, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's good too.
So he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers and authorities. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross.
Excellent. So I'm just going to open it up real quick. What in your reading, what stood out to you guys as Alice was reading? And Tom, I'll unmute you. You're off of discipline now. Hold on. I'm just clicking everywhere. So just while I'm doing that, anyone, what stood out to you? What stood out to you in your reading? Alice's reading.
I was reading today about was it in Psalms where he's something about God dwelling in his people. And so where it says on verse 19, in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. It's pretty cool. It's like the temple, you know, where the presence of God was descended on the temple, and
sure.
Jesus is that.
Jesus is the temple. Yeah, the fullness of deity dwelt in Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the creation.
Right.
Creation or completeness, the fullness of God, all things hold together, all creation. I don't know. I see that.
Yeah, no, it's a cosmic text, right?
Yeah.
Whether things that are invisible or visible, whether things in heaven or things on the earth, right? It's showing Jesus as this cosmic sovereign ruler over everything, and through his sacrifice, everything, whether things in heaven or on earth, everything was reconciled to him. Yeah. What else? Fatima says the firstborn from the dead. Yeah. He's the one who's leading us into what it means to be a resurrected people. Yeah. It's good. What else stood out in your readings?
If this is a song that they were singing, it's a beautiful, like overall picture of sort of the gospel.
Yes. Yeah.
We heard them sing this. It's like, this is who God is, and then this is who Christ is and what he did for us. You know, it's like this beautiful overall gospel thing.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's very rich theologically. There's so much here. Kenton Dow has his hand up.
I was gonna point out verse 18, but Fatima beat me to it.
Yeah.
It just seems like a really trippy verse. I don't know. It doesn't like. I don't know, the church, like it says, he is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that everything he might have this supremacy. It just, I don't know, almost doesn't make sense to me, but I think I got it.
Yeah. He's the because he was earlier before him all things all together. He's the head of the body, the church, right? He's the first one who has been raised, right? So he's the pioneer of resurrection from among the dead, so that in everything he might be kind of the sovereign. right? Because God dwells in him, because the fullness of God dwells in him, he was raised from the dead. He is kind of that, the pioneer of a resurrected being. And that is kind of what we're hoping for, as we'll see later on in the text of Colossians as well, that he leads us into what resurrection is. And so he's the first one to be raised from the dead, but he's also God, right? So that adds to the trippiness of it. He's the first one to be raised from the dead, but he's also God who was raised from the dead.
I like that I think it's verse 17 is, so he was there before any of it came to existence and holds it all together right up to this moment. It's amazing to think that he was, just the enormity of it, just the huge vastness of what he created. And then we're just like, we're in there right now and we're worried about tomorrow, right? And it's like he was there before anything existed and is going to be there long after we're gone.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's just incredible, right? Because he holds it all together, right? It's just, I don't know.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's good.
Amazing.
Tom, what do you got?
Yeah, I really liked verse 17 because he's before all things, by him all things consist. So he was before creation, and he is the entire encompassing Trinity of the Godhead, and he is God in the flesh.
Right. Yeah. Verse 16. In him all things were created. So like how many things does that encompass?
Everything.
Right. Yeah. He through him, anything that was created through him. Right. So that excludes himself, right? So he's not created. He is before creation. Yeah. And then as you guys both brought out, he sustains it. And that's the same thing we read in Hebrews 1, right? He's sustaining all things through the power of his word. Yeah. Good. What else stood out to you all as we were reading? All right. Yeah, so just going over a couple of elements here. And as we do more of the textual study, as we move through this book, we'll go into 15 through 20 in quite a bit more depth. But the Christ hymn shows Jesus's lordship in just a really, really powerful way. But preceding that, there's another cosmic reality. Preceding the Christ hymn, there's another cosmic reality, verses 13 through 14. He has rescued us. So let me go back. I hate doing this because I know where I want to begin, because I know the verse that has a statement that I want to read, but it's all so good. I'm just going to start in verse 9. For by this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of his will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, knowing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of his holy people. Right, so moving into the church theme as well, in the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of his Son that he loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. Right, so the cosmic aspect, right, that major theological passage that you read in verses 15 through 20, that's so powerful. Remember, it has a real, like, kind of on the ground purpose for it. It's not just abstract theology. So he's talking about the fact in verses like 12 and 13 and 14 that we are part of a different kingdom, right? We're part of a different kingdom than the rest of the world lives in. We've been taken out of this domain of darkness and then brought into the kingdom of the Son that he loves. And as he brought out earlier in verse 12, the kingdom of light, right? So you have these two competing worldviews, these two competing realities in existence, right? The kingdom of darkness, the kingdom of light. And what you see in 15 through 20 is that Jesus is the creator of everything, and he's reconciled both. He's reconciled everything together under his own headship. So it's not abstract theology. It has a real world application, right? That we have been renewed and remade, and we serve this cosmic Lord who created everything. So the hymn, it's preceded by this cosmic reality that we were in darkness. We existed in one reality, but because of Jesus, we've been taken out of that reality and transferred into a different one. We're now participants in the kingdom of light, the kingdom of his beloved Son. And just think about that for just a minute. Right? The idea that there's a transaction that's happened because of Jesus's work in our life. We've been taken out of one way of existing and brought into a completely different way of existing. And they're so stark that he uses this darkness and light. Like that's how different these two types of existing are in Paul's writing, or in Paul's book, right? That there's two types of existence. We've been taken out of one and brought into another. Although we live in the world, we have a different allegiance, right? And that's one of the main points. We have a different allegiance. There's a different reality that's been manifest in the world and is ruled over by the Son of God. So a defining characteristic of this new kingdom is, as we read, is verse 14, redemption, forgiveness of sins, right? The world has its systems and philosophies, its way of navigating, and we have a different one, right? What we have is the qualification, the ability to share in the inheritance of the saints of light, right? So there's a real kind of cosmic difference between our new reality and our old one, right? That we have a totally different set of lenses that we perceive the world through, right? It's different as light and dark, day and night. There should be a radically different viewpoint through which we see the world. Comments or questions before we move on?
How do we, so when that happens, I mean, it's you talk about moving from the, one kingdom to the next. I mean, and I get how it happens. It seems like there should be something like more sustained, dramatic, so that we recognize it all the time, right? Because it's like, I think if you moved from, I don't know, third world country to the United States, right? That you're moving from sort of one kingdom to the next. It's like amazing. Right? Or you move the other way, right?
Right.
But we're not moving physically from one kingdom to the next, and it's like,
right.
It's hard to. It's sort of hard to sustain that. I don't know, sustain, maybe not the right word. It's hard to understand like the joy you should have. And sustain the joy if you're moving from like a third world country to a first world country, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, that's dramatic. I mean, maybe understand how dramatic that is, or appreciate it, I guess.
So going back up to, like, say, verse 10, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, that you may have great endurance and patience, giving joyful thanks to the Father. So I think that those elements, as they grow, like in our lives, growing the knowledge of God, bearing more fruit, right, working for God, seeing God working in our lives, growing in our ability to have patience and endurance, growing in our desire to give thanks, joyful thanks to the Father. Like all those different aspects, I think, are part of what help us to see the world differently. As those aspects grow, we perceive reality differently. So, you know, if we can look at our situation right now, right, cooped up in the homes and everything else, and instead of being frustrated or whatever, we just keep giving thanks for all of the wonderful things that are, you know, happening in our life, for all the people that God has placed in our lives, right? If our first response is thankfulness and just patience, that's it's a different way of seeing the world. Okay. From sorry guys, we are having an emergency muster, so we have to get out the uniform. Hopefully
That was from Ken, but he accidentally sent it to me, so I just.
Oh. Awesome. Okay. Well, God bless you, Kenton. Thanks for what you do. All right. Very good. Well, it was awesome to see him. That was really cool. I'm glad he was able to sign in. Yeah. And we'll look at a couple of different elements of that later on in chapter 3, where Paul kind of gives this really dramatic image of the Christian life being dead to one set of worldviews, alive in a different one. And then he also uses the language of kind of taking off one set of clothes, you know, that is basically our worldliness, and putting on a new set of clothes, which is our service to God. He makes this really stark contrast between death and life, and one set of visible demonstrations and a different set of visible demonstrations. We'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, no, like I think to Travis's point, you know, it's easy to get kind of complacent in our Christian walk, and not to see the world so differently. Anything else? Any other comments or questions on that aspect? Okie doke. So one of the other things that was brought up by a few of you earlier, the whole creation is under the reign and the care of Jesus, who is, as he says in verse 15, the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Right? So he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. So it doesn't mean he's the first created thing. I've got a big, like I have your camera right in my face, Scott. So like I just see this one giant face. It's awesome. So the whole creation is under the reign and the care of Jesus, who is the invisible God. Or he's the image of the invisible God, right? He is the impression. He takes the shape of the invisible God. He is the stamp of the invisible God. In the firstborn of creation, that doesn't mean he's the first created thing, right? We already read he created everything. The idea he is preeminent, right? So the idea is he's got preeminence over everything. So he created all we see and all we don't see. And that is a huge element within the book of Colossians. So in verse 16, in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, and things and all things have been created through him. So one of the major elements within Colossians are these spiritual powers that are at work, right? Whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. And then so he and you get that later on in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. So there's this invisible realm, whether it's, you know, in heaven or on earth, of these powers that exist. And Jesus is the head of all of them. He created them. He is before them, right? And that goes back to so many different Old Testament texts and everything else. But there's an unseen realm of spiritual forces that are at work in the world, right? And one of the things that Paul states flat out here and in other places that we'll get to is that Jesus is Lord of those too, right? They don't do anything outside of Jesus's command, outside of Jesus's authority. They don't act on their own behalf. They are subject to Jesus, right? And you see that powerfully demonstrated in Jesus's life and ministry, right? When he could just, tell a demon-possessed person, hey, get out of there, and the demon just flees, right? So these spiritual forces are all completely subject to Jesus. And so it's one of the elements in Colossians is you have these spiritual invisible forces such as viruses. Yeah, I'd say all things were created through him, right? Jesus created that bat. But I mean, you think about viruses, right? How many good viruses are there in the world, right? There's many, many more good viruses than there are bad viruses. And if there weren't viruses, we wouldn't be able to live. They're necessary for sustaining life, but there are good ones and there are bad ones. But yeah, so he's the creator he's in charge, and he is ruling over everything visible, everything invisible, whether it's spiritual or physical, whether it's in heaven or on earth. He is the ruler of them all. And that's one of the things that I think for a lot of us, we don't live in a very, I guess we might live in kind of a superstitious world, right? A lot of talk about karma or all these other things. It's like whatever these spiritual forces are that do exist in the world, we trust that Jesus is in charge of them, right? So we don't need to worry about, whether it's a demonic force or whatever. We don't have to worry about any of those things. Jesus is in charge. He is in control. So our present condition says, what is that? What is this whole thing? Jesus being in charge of everything and holding up everything in the world. What does that say about where we are now? It says, trust in Jesus. We might not understand what's going on. He does. He's the one who created it. He's the one that's holding everything together. He's the one who has reconciled all things to himself. He understands what's going on. We might not. It's not for us to try to hold everything together. That's his job. It's up to us to live for him, to work for him, to give thanks, right? As he says earlier, to produce fruit, right? Christian fruit, to live a life that produces his will, moving through it. It's not for us to hold everything together. Like I said, it's up to us to live for him, to work for him, to treat people as though Jesus is Lord of the situation. And it's up to us to treat people as though Jesus is Lord of that situation. This doesn't mean that we sit back and pretend that there's no problem. It means that we live with dignity, grace, and hope, and that's provided by Jesus. It means that we follow Jesus through mess with peace. Right? Through the mess of the world, we follow Jesus with peace because we know that he is in charge. He's ruling over everything. He's holding everything together. So whatever chaos there might be, we trust in Jesus and we live through his peace. And it's a peace that surpasses understanding, as the scripture said. It means that when everyone is losing their mind, as Christians, as people who trust Jesus, we can be a voice of calm, compassion, and strength. Someone was going to say something. Someone had their mic unmuted.
Yeah, it was me. That's what's so tough right now, where there's a lot, like everybody's stressed, and it's like you go out and you buy, 40 cases of toilet paper, right? Because you try to control something, right? It's like, what can you control? And it's not that you shouldn't buy toilet paper. I don't know.
Everyone should have toilet paper. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But you try to glom onto what you can control.
That's right.
And I'm not saying you should just stand there and not and say, okay, Jesus, you got this, toilet paper. Like I was saying to you that thing, you and Ellis that thing the other day about toilet paper magically appearing, right?
Right.
That's not going to happen, right? But we've got to be able to turn over our lives to Christ and believe that he's got something going on for us, right? That's hard, right? We got to take care of ourselves.
Right.
But it's also, give everything to him.
Yeah, no, there's definitely the personal responsibility. Yeah, but and we live our lives, but we don't need to have the panic that we see out there. We don't need to view everything as out of control, because we trust that Jesus is in control, right? So we can live a life of peace and patience and thankfulness because of that. Yeah. Right? Jesus, the one who created everything, knows what he's doing. right? So, we don't need to freak out the way everyone else does. And I think that allows us to be a presence of peace in the world. It allows us to actually be seen as different than the rest of the world is. So I think personally it's an opportunity. In a lot of ways, what we see right now, I think what we have is a lot of opportunity to be a blessing to people's lives, to be people of joy and thankfulness and encouragement and patience. I think that there's a lot of opportunity right now. Within what is that saying? That Christians are like tea bags. They're really powerful when you put them in hot water. And if we see the mess around us as kind of hot water, it's really an opportunity to change things and to be a powerful, potent force in the world. So because Jesus is the head of the church, as he says, what is that, verse 18? Yeah. Verse 18, because he's the head of the church, right? He's the firstborn from the dead. He began our resurrection story. He made peace through his blood, as he says in verses 18 through 20. The language of that passage is, once again, it's the cosmic in scope. Jesus has made cosmic peace through his sacrifice. We're not really able to comprehend all that means, right? What it means that Jesus reconciled everything to himself, whether it's in heaven or on earth, right? Or verse 16, where he's before everything in heaven, whether visible or invisible, whether thrones or powers. Like we're not able to comprehend like all these different forces and spiritual realities that exist and physical realities that exist, and how like that's I don't think we can quite comprehend all that entails. However, one reality we may strive to live into is that of fearlessness concerning those unseen forces in the world. Right? I think that there's going to be the initial response to whether it's spiritual distress or societal distress. A lot of times the initial response is fear. Right? But if Jesus is Lord and he is in control, in charge of everything, we can actually not give in to that initial decision to be afraid or to panic or whatever it is. We can just trust that there's no reality, visible or invisible, which Jesus is not Lord over. Right? So go back to no. So because of Jesus, because of who Jesus is and what he has done, we've been brought into a new kingdom, right? A new story. There's a new reality, right? As he said earlier, we're holy and blameless and above reproach before him, right? We have a different way of looking at God even. Whereas before, I know like me, maybe some of you guys, we had just this like view of God that was totalitarian, just kind of this cosmic judge, and that's it. But because of this new reality, that it's through his blood, it's through his sacrifice that he has made peace, that he's reconciled all things to himself. Right? Because of what he has done for us, we have a different way of being able to see God, which becomes a responsibility. Verse 23. So I'll read 21 through 23. Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior, but now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present to you holy in his sight, without blemish and free of accusation. If you continue in your faith, established and firm, and do not move from the hope held out in the gospel. This is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, and of which I, Paul, have become a servant. Right. So again, this cosmic view of Jesus's lordship has this real life implication, right? That we've been reconciled to him, and because he is God in the flesh, who was also crucified for us, but then raised from the dead, we can have a total trust in him. because he's reconciled us through his death to now be seen before God as holy, without blemish, and free from accusation, right? So, whatever kind of view of God we have, whether it's that totalitarian view or whatever, we can kind of realize what Jesus has done for us puts us in beautiful, perfect standing with that cosmic God. Any comments or questions before we move forward? You got to unmute your mic if you got something.
So back to 15 through 20 real quick.
Yes.
That language that you were saying, we can't really grasp the gloriousness of it all, and everything, and that's totally true. We can't, but it's kind of neat how he gives us, at least I think so, he gives us really tiny glimpses throughout our lives of, just those moments of extreme clarity, for lack of a better term, like where you're just in that moment, you're like, wow, you just know there's so much more to what's going on around you all the time. And I try to hang on, and I try to write down some of those times that have happened.
Yeah.
So I don't forget them, but you never get that moment back, of course. But I think it's neat to reflect on some of those. Just, it's usually like, it might even just be for a second, but it's an amazing glimpse into the heavenlies, I think.
Well, those little times where the curtain is kind of peeled back just enough to give you a hint that there's so much more reality than what we see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that Jesus is Lord over all of it.
Yeah.
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 Are there comments or questions? Durkee.
Comment, Derek.
Yeah, what's up?
I just like in 23, if you continue in your faith, establish and firm, do not move from the hope held out in the gospel. I don't know. That just resonates me kind of right now with all the stuff going on. Like, there's that hope out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of goes to the point that you and Travis also made. If you can, so there's a responsibility, right? There's a responsibility that we have because of what Jesus has done for us, if you continue in your faith, right? So we have this responsibility to live for Jesus, and to hope in him because of everything that he's done for us, right? We have the reality of what he's done, so we can live in hope in what he will do. Yeah. So that's, good. Good. Any other comments or questions? All right, so it's 7:28. So I'm just gonna leave with one last little thing. As God's new people, brought into a new kingdom, given a new reality and eternal hope, we have the blessing of living a new life in a broken world, right? Because of what Jesus has done, he's transferred us from the domain of darkness to the kingdom of light. He's renewed us, remade us, refashioned us. This week, I want us all to try to think about everything that we have to be thankful for, right? So in your morning prayers and devotionals, write down a list of things that you can be thankful for every day, right? You just take some time and write down a thankful for list, right? And then all the things that you have to praise God for, to be thankful for, right? I want us all to focus on everything that Jesus has done for us. And I want us to focus more on how we can be people of peace and reconciliation and hope, right? All these major themes that are woven throughout this passage of peace, reconciliation, and hope in an uncertain time. So just be thinking about in your prayers this week, all the things that you have to be thankful for, right? Be writing those things down, and then finding ways in your relationships, within your neighbors or work or whatever it might be, to be a person of peace. Right? How can you bring peace into the situation? How can you try to bring reconciliation into the situation? How can you be a person of hope within your situation? So comments or questions? Okay. Hey, Scott, since you're right in front of me, I have your camera. Your camera, for some reason, it stopped on your camera. So all I see is your beautiful beard. Can you close us out with a prayer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Dear God, we thank you for this time that we were able to come together just as a family of Christians, that we just love you. We just pray at this time. There's so much going on, but just to trust in you, as we can't control everything, but you do. But just trust in you, be patient, and we just pray for safety. We just pray for wisdom at this time. And ultimately, we just thank you so much for your son, Jesus, his sacrifice, just that, again, that hope of heaven that we have. Please just be with us the rest of today and this week. Just guide us. Just put your hedge of protection over us. And we're just thank you that you're always there. We just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good. So before we leave, for anyone watching on YouTube, again, if you do want to be on the Zoom meeting and you're kind of tentative about how to do it, just give me a call and I can talk you through it. It's very, very easy. We talk you through it, and the more of your faces we can all see, the better. Again, God bless you guys. I miss seeing you all. This will be over, and when it's over, we'll have a time of partying, I guess. We'll have a time of joy, and we'll celebrate being able to come back together.
Mom and Dad candle. Mom and Dad. Has anybody heard from Mark or Duana?
Talked to Mark 2 days ago.
They doing okay?
Yeah.
I think Tawana texted me, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
She texted me a couple days ago.
Okay. She's like, this is Donna.